Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Debbie Watts from Arakoola Kard Art. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you're going to like the card we are going to make. This is the card we're going to make today, and you can see it's a card with a beautiful background. We will be using Brushos today, and I will show you how to make this gorgeous textured background. You can do this with other paints and a splatter brush, but I find these Brushos really something quite special. Let's just take a quick look at the materials you will need for today's card. So the main product we'll be using are going to be Brushos, and these are pigment powders. They are amazing. You don't think you need a lot. Very tiny speckles. Once you've added the water, you will be amazed how the colours just simply burst. So making the card, we'll look at this later. So they come in various packs, quantities per pack. This one is a box of 12 colours. So yeah, some quite unique colours in here. You will need just a distressing black soot and a blending tool. This is going to edge the card. Water spritzer, tissue paper, just to clean up the mess as we go along. Always have a hand towel ready to keep my surfaces dry. Double-sided tape, and you can use the white double-sided tissue tape or this red ultra clear sticky. This is more useful for a heavier cardstock, or if you've layered up the cardstock, or stick into a glitter card, because some glitter cards the white tissue tape doesn't actually adhere to very well. Pair of scissors. I've got here some ribbons, really pretty lace ribbons, optional extra. Not quite sure whether we're going to use these today, but I've got them anyway. Let's take a look. And a sliding buckle. These are so magnificent. This is a rainbow one. I don't know whether you've got the camera picking that up at all. But it's not just your silver and gold. It's got quite a few rainbow colours on there. So yeah, really difficult. But hopefully when it's on the card later, you'll really pick out these colours. We have some gold glitter card and a flourish die cut. I'm not going to make the traditional green flourish. I want to use the gold on this card. Any glitter card will do. A couple of pieces of watercolour card, and this is what we're going to add the Brushos to. So one for your main card and another piece to make your flowers from. So I've got a couple of die cut for daisy dies, and they're going to look quite fabulous once they're die cut from the Brushos. We've got a coordinated backing paper, and the base card I'm going to be using is just an A5 cream cardstock. I use 300 GSM because it's quite sturdy and it makes the card stand up proud. Got a heat gun, and I think that's about it. So let's start making the card. So first of all, take one of your watercolour cards, and I've measured this as about 14 centimetres by 19 centimetres. This allows you to maybe just trim the edges before affixing it to your card. You can obviously make an A4 sheet. I've simply cut mine in half. I'm using one for the flowers and one for the background. So making an A4 sheet and doing all it in one go is an option, but I choose to work in smaller pieces of card. So I'm just going to put the flower card to one side at the moment. So I'll show you the two ways of using the Brushos, which are my favourites. There's many others. You can use them as paints, everything, but today we're just going to use them sprinkled onto the watercolour card. So first of all, for the first method, I'm going to lightly spritz the watercolour card, and you can see that it's actually bending, which is what the watercolour card is actually designed to do once the water. So don't be too concerned about that. It will dry itself out. You can actually start to bend it back down if you want to. If you want to try to work on a flat surface, you can of course tape the sides to fix it to your surface, but I like working with the contorted shapes because I think it gives it a bit more dimension. So without saturating the watercolour card with your water, just get a nice even coating. If it's bubbled with water, you can actually blop it off with a piece of tissue to just take some excess. And you're going to take the brushes. I'm going to use the black brushes here. You'll be amazed at the colours that are actually inside this pigment. It's not all going to be black. So let's just, I've pierced, a very tiny hole in the lid. You can take the lids off, but then you've got little or no control over how much brushes come out of the pot. So simply by piercing a small hole, maybe with a pokey tool or something like that, then I find I can use this almost like a salt pot, and I then can tap and flick and control the amount of powder that I apply onto my cardstock. So let's go. So you're going to tap it as if you're putting, say, salt on your chips, okay? So it is that easy. And you can already start to see the colours exploding and reacting with the water. So some slight taps and you can see how that colour is just spreading into its own dimensions. So it starts to look like a night sky galaxy. And on here you have some blues, so you might be able to see some blue, you've got some oranges, browns. This is all from the black colour. So as I said earlier, you're going to be amazed at the colours that are in these pots. So black isn't just black. So if you're happy with that, then great. Be mindful this is the background card, so you can do as heavy or light as you want. If, for example, you've got some space here and you want to just add, then give it a good spritz and just add some more powder. So the other thing you can do is, once you've put that on there, if you can from a distance just spritz, and the more water you add, the more reactive your pigment brushes are going to be. So I don't know whether you can actually see them starting to bleed. Let's pick it up. So I've only added more to this area, so let's just give a quick squirt to that area, and you can see how vibrant and how those colours move. So I think it's quite amazing the results that you get from brushes. So this was about a couple of minutes ago, a plain piece of card, and now it's going to be a gorgeous backing card. So I quickly want to just take my heat gun and dry it off. Once you've dried your cardstock, don't worry about it contorting. Any cardstock, once you add water, will do that, but it's going to be stuck down onto your cardstock anyway, so you can just try to bend it back in, bend it back into shape. And as you can see, it's got some amazing colours and colour bursts. So you've got the blues, the oranges, the black, the brown. Isn't it just incredible? On your surface, you will have lots of Brushos. What you can do, waste not, want not, you can just spritz that, take a spare piece of watercolour card and create a backing ground by just adding it and picking up some of that colour. So another way to make use of your craft mat is to actually use it like an ink pad. So as you can see, just picking up the colour, spritzing it, and you can see you can just add to the places. Maybe you can put that to one side and use it later. So that's just taken a couple of minutes, picking up all of that powder. And there we have a card background for future use. Just remember to dry it off with a heat gun. So keeping your wax surfaces dry and clean as you go along, excuse the squeak, tissue paper, you just want to keep your area free. So I tend to use a hand towel just to keep it nice and dry. Can use tissue paper, but I feel with hand towels you can pop them in the wash and use them time and time again. So you've got a lovely clean dry surface. I'm now going to make the cardstock backing paper for my flowers, and this I'm going to sprinkle the Brushos onto a dry piece of watercolour card. Remember previously with this one we spritzed it with water and then added the powder. So this time around I'm just going to sprinkle onto a dry card. So you can imagine there is no change or colour burst here because there's no water to react with the Brushos. So then taking my spritz water from a distance, simply spray a couple of times. You can see the water penetrating the cardstock as it starts to contort. And this is sometimes where you realise you've actually put too much Brushos on, but again it is whatever the finished depth, colour depth and coverage that you want as to how much water you spritz onto it and how much pigment of the Brushos you add. So as you can see on this, we've got some quite bolder areas as we've spritzed it, and if it's too wet you will get some runs, but I think it just adds a bit of interest to the card. So once again, once you've finished adding enough water and enough Brushos to get the desired effect, you just take your heat gun and just simply dry off the card. So taking the base card, which I've just trimmed to 14.8 centimetres to 20.8 centimetres. I've got a layer coordinated colour paper stock, and this I've put the white washi tape, white tissue tape to the 4 edges. So you simply peel this off and affix into place, and you want to leave a nice even border on all 4 sides. I've also trimmed down the backing card, again perfect fit to size, just to leave a nice even border to all of the edges. Don't stick this one down yet because I'm going to decide whether we're going to use the ribbon to affix into place, so leave that one. But again, for this one, if you are going to use a ribbon, maybe you should use the red sticky tape on all of the 4 edges. It just allows it to give it good grip. So we'll just put those to one side. So using the other piece of Brusho card back in stock and your daisy dies, what you need to do is just cut some flowers out using your die cutting machine. So position them where you want them. So you can see, I mentioned earlier that you can have splodges of deep colour or speckles of no colour. So lay your die over the areas where you want to cut, and you can see which parts of the paper you actually want your flowers to come through. So it could be an idea that you have quite a bold base to the flower and then more speckled effect. To make my flowers, I tend to use 3 each of the die cuts, so should be enough on here to cut 3 large, 3 medium and 3 small. I always fix my dies into place with some sticky very low tack tape. When I run through the die cutter machine, just simply holds them into place. And I think that comes more into play when you want to pick out a tiny bit of detail in your flowers, so that they don't slip as they go through the die cutting machine. So with the flowers in place, let's go and die cut these flowers. So once you've die cut your flowers, and on some cardstock, this is thick watercolour card, so you just simply have to push through to pop the flower shape and free it up. You can use greaseproof paper to your die, greaseproof paper, your cardstock. That does release cut dies a lot quicker, but as you can see, that took no time at all. A couple of ways you can make your flowers. You can mould them with your hands and just using your nail bend them and just start to break down the fibres of your cardstock. I always work from underneath as opposed to on top, because then you can actually see some of the definition. It's hard with the camera angle on the flowers, but you can start to manipulate the flower and then flip it over and start to curl it up. So that's one way of shaping your die cuts into gorgeous flowers. The other way is to take a piece of foam and a roller ball and flip the right side down, so you've got the wrong side up, and simply work with the roller ball to break down again the fibres of your cardstock, and as you can see, it starts to curl up into a ball. Doesn't look like much at the moment. It doesn't look like a flower. Looks like a bit of a golf ball actually, but if you flip it back and then push down to the center and gently roll, you can see that the flower has started. Let me show you on my hand, it's probably better to cup it actually. You can see the flower has actually started to create its own shape. So do that with all of your shapes until you have enough to construct the flowers. So once you've shaped all of your flowers, you have got them into lots of curled shapes. Some flat, I'm going to use that one on the bottom, but as you can see, each one is uniquely different because of the brushos that we used and the effect that they give on the cardstock. So I like to make my flowers quite full, and I'm going to use Glossy Accents as the glue to stick the layers together. It's not just for making water drops or glossy accents on cards. It is quite good for a glue stock as well, particularly good for if you're using vellum. So decide which petal is going to be your base of your flower. I cut 3 of each. Whether we'll use 3, who knows. So I'm going to create the flowers, and you can create all the sizes in the same way. So to begin with, to make a large flower, I'm going to take 2 of the large and a centre for a medium, or you can have 3 large, okay, and that makes quite a full flower. So there's all various different options you can do for flower making. So actually I'm going to do all of the same size petals. So on the bottom one, going to go for this as the bottom. Simply put a bit of Glossy Accents in the middle of the base layer flower, and take your next layer and slightly offset the petals. If you put the petals on top of each other, you get big gaps, so you twist it slightly and offset, and then just hold it in place for a couple of minutes until the Glossy Accent sets. So I'm going to add the final top layer. Again, offset your flower so that you don't see any gaps in between. Do that for all of the different sizes and you'll have 3 flowers. For the centre of my flowers, I've decided I want to add some of these beautiful stamens. These have got like a frosted glass bead. You can get all kinds of different stamens. You can get the white or cream ones that you can colour with an alcohol pen to coordinate it, or you can get the pre-coloured. So there's lots of different ones on the market, but I'm just going to go with these black frosted ones. So I take 2 or 3 per flower. Sometimes with the bigger flowers I'll take 3 and then the smaller flowers just the 2. So you want to arrange them so that they're all different lengths, not all the same length. As you can see there, they're all different lengths, and twist them together to try to make it easier to thread through your flower. So with your flower centre and a pokey tool, what you need to do is just pierce the centre of the flower. I tend to do this on a foam rather than my hand for obvious reasons, but just be careful that you're not going to pierce your skin with your pokey tool. Taking the centre, just pop a hole through the centre of your 3 layers. So this is why you just need to make sure that the flowers are stuck together, all the different layers, before you start it, because you're being quite brutal here with the flower, but it's only just going to add some shape and dimension to the flower once you pull it up. So you've created a pinhole through that, so just give it a wiggle, and you pretty much then want to thread through your stamen into the hole that you've pierced, and once you see them peep in the other side, just pull them through. As you can see, they don't always go through together. You may have to just create the hole slightly bigger depending on the thickness of your stamen, So this bit, it's just worth spending a little bit of time. Can be quite fiddly, but they will eventually go through. Try not to make your hole, of course, too big, but you just might have to give it a bit of a wiggle. If you've got a thicker pokey tool to make a bigger hole, great. If not, just keep perseverance and pull them through. So having them at different lengths, you will see in the flower that they actually sit at different lengths. Okay, so they don't all look so uniformed. Flip it over. You can see that I haven't pulled them all the way through, given the different lengths, and you want to just fix them into place. Again, I'm using the glossy accents as a glue. It's quite a sturdy product and very universal, lots of multi-uses. So there's your gorgeous flower. You need to just put that to one side to dry. So do that with the others, and then you're going to have some magnificent flowers to use on your card. Once you put all the stamens into the centre and they are dry, pinch the top layer of the flower just to reshape them, and as you can see, they're starting to look beautiful flowers. You can buy these ready-made, but I think it's just great if you can create them, everything on your card, from your own techniques. Die cutting the flowers is one way. For those who haven't got a die cutting machine, you can of course stamp the image to your brushoed background and then fussy cut them out. That will give you the same, and you can then shape them the same, layer them and construct them the same as well. So aren't they just amazing? We now want to take your glitter cardstock and your flourish to die cut some shapes. I'm going to be cutting 3 for my card. So taking them over to your die machine, running them through. You may need to run through a couple of times because this is coated glitter stock, and depending on your die machine, they may not cut through first time. Sometimes they do. Just be very careful. As you can see, it's quite delicate, but this it's still attached in places, so gently tease them out, or obviously use your cutters to snip them out. Last thing you want to do is just pull and rip, because you will start to lose some of the detail and tear them. So there you go. I think this is a lovely flourish, and I think it's going to be quite different, that it's not just a green flourish. It's going to coordinate lovely with those flowers. So gathering your finished components, you have your coordinated card and your A5 trimmed cardstock. You have your backing paper that you created with your Brushos. I'm going to decide where I'm going to position the ribbons to coordinate them, and if I'm going to use the slider buckle. Not quite sure yet. I've got my flowers and my flourishes. So do you want a sentiment on all of your cards? It's entirely up to you. But what I'm going to do today is going to use this Hello die, and I am going to cut 1 in gold and 1 on black cardstock, and then I'm going to overlay the gold onto the black cardstock to give it a shadow halo effect. So let's go to die cut those. Taking the 2 die cuts, 1 in gold and the other in black, I am going to affix the gold on top of the black to create a very slight shadowing. So to do that, I'm just going to put some clear glue on the back of the gold die cut. You don't need to over glue this, and I'm using a blue quick glue as it will dry clear, so any seepage from the back of the die onto the black card, once it's dry, you won't see. So you don't need to cover it in, too much. So as you can see, some small glue dots on there. So take the gold, overlay onto the black. This can be quite fiddly, and leave a halo of black. Try not to, this is quite a delicate die, so try not to misshape the word too much. And as you can see, just gently manipulate it so that you get an even look of your edge. Make sure it's stuck firmly, not to your fingers. So you can see there, if I pop this onto the back of a piece of card, you can see how it's created a halo of black around the gold. It will just make it stand out more once it's placed on your card. With my two ribbons, I have now added the slider buckle, and I'm not quite sure whether you can see, but those rainbow colours are really reflecting out from the blue and cream ribbon, so I think that's going to be really nice once it's on the backing card. I've put a foam pad to the back of this just to keep it in place once it's fixed onto the card. I'm going to add this topper card to my base layer with foam pads. I've prepared those already, and I've put some ultra sticky tape to the back of the card where I'm going to attach the ribbon. And the reason I'm doing that, obviously the red ultra clear is more sticky than the white double-sided tissue tape, and I want to fix to the back my ribbons. So I'm going to offset the slider buckle. I don't want it in the centre, entirely up to you of course, but on today's card it's going to be at one side. So first of all, I'm going to take off the foam pad sticky back and position this slider buckle to where I want that to be on the card. Okay, so that's nice and firm in place. This also frees up both of my hands for when I'm trying to center and wrap the ribbons around the sides and the back of the cards. I don't want to put it so tight because it's going to buckle the card. So again, the foam pad on the back of the slider buckle really helps to keep a secure point and allows you to then loosely fold back the ribbon. So flip the card over, take off the sticky backing and do one layer at a time. So taking the cream lace ribbon, and then because this has got holes in, you can actually get some adhesive through that. If it was a solid ribbon, you would want to put a new strip of sticky tape to the back and then simply wrap your second layer around. That's quite nice and quite secure. So do the same for the other side. These sometimes can be quite fiddly, so take off the backing paper, sorry, the backing paper. Make sure your ribbons aren't twisted, although actually that looks quite nice, but I want the blue on the top. So again, holding the blue, keeping that out of the way, loosely wrap it around the back, and then again you want to do the same with the blue ribbon. So as you can see, it's loose, it's not going to buckle the card. So that looks really nice, and it's picking out, this blue ribbon is picking out the blues that have come out on the Brushos. So I think it's going to be really quite coordinated once it's finished. We're going to remove the sticky foam pads, the backings, and then we're going to fix it to your card. I should have actually done this and only showed you a couple that we needed to take off, but almost there. Some come off easier than others. So fix this, make sure you've got the card opening the right way, so that when your layer is on, you can send the card out properly. Too many times have I actually put it on the wrong way. So we're not all perfect, we do have some happy accidents. So centre the card and just gently push those foam pads. You can flip the card over and smooth it on the back, and if you leave a nice even border around, you can see that coordination is really starting to work quite nicely. Next, we've got your flowers. These have now set from being glued earlier, so we want to just snip the loops off from each of the flowers. So we've got our sentiment, we've got our flourishes, and we've got our flowers. So I think really you just spend a couple of minutes deciding, if you haven't already and you've got this far, where you want to place your flowers. Do you want them all above? Would the card look too top heavy? It's entirely up to you where you place them. So at this stage, because we haven't glued the back, we've got the freedom of moving them around until you get the look that you're aiming for. So I think that is going to be the desired look that I want. So once you've done that, you just want to stick everything into place, and to do that I would use some blue glue on the back of Hello sentiment. So pop it on the back and then fix that into place. With your flowers, because they are heavier, you can either use the foam pads onto the back of the flowers and the blue glue onto the back of the flourishes. I tend to put my flowers on first and then tuck the flourishes into place, adding them. So let's fix the flowers on. I've put 3 foam pads onto the larger flower and just press that in place. It might be worthwhile just lifting the layers and pressing the bottom petals just to make sure those foam pads have stuck quite nicely. Gives you also an opportunity to arrange those petals as you want them. So continue with the same with the other flowers. Again, making sure those foam pads are firmly fixed and rearranging the flowers. And the final flower, just simply pop that into place. You can be quite robust with these. We often treat them so delicately, but of course you do have to be careful you don't tear them. So that's looking quite good, isn't it? You can see the boldness of those flowers just picking out from the background. Finally, our flourishes. add these last, lift the flowers, tuck the leaves, and rather than pushing them flat, just buckle them up. Put a pair of scissors underneath and then stick some of the leaves down, and it will give it a nice 3D effect. So do the same with the other ones. Tuck it in under the flower, and again loop it back up to give it some texture and depth. And the final one. Don't be frightened to work with your card upside down, and sometimes it's actually easier to put things into place in doing that. So sticking the final flourish, as you see I've gone off of the actual card. Just be mindful of how much room you've got in the envelope for posting. If it's not sticking, just actually affix again the clear glue to your base of your card, and then push and hold the flourish into place. So as you can see, that was quite a quick but interesting card that we've made today using the Brushos, using some die cuts. You can stamp, don't forget the flower images, and fussy cut them, a couple of coordinating ribbons, and a simple sentiment to say hello. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and please like, subscribe and leave a comment. I never know whether you are following these, whether my instructions are clear, whether I'm showing the card to its full potential. So your comments would be really helpful for me to do future videos for you. So thanks once again. My name is Debbie Watts, this is Arakoola Kard Art, and finally from me to you, happy crafting.